Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and it's time for more Scuttlebutt. This week's game is brought to you by Tier 9 American Tech Tree Destroyer, USS Fletcher. This is my favorite ship in the game, hands down. If you took away every other ship in the game but left me Fletcher to play, I would be totally happy. She is such a well-rounded ship for capping, fighting other destroyers, knife fighting in caps, delivering torpedoes from stealth. She can provide AA support to teammates. She can smoke them up. She can defend herself with her own AA. I mean, she can't do everything, but it's pretty damn close. I played United States Navy ships all day on stream today to celebrate the 4th of July, and this was one of the better games that I had, despite a long series of back-breaking losses due to just god-awful bad teams. So I managed to find one that was kind of worth showing. This is not some kind of damage-shattering game by any means, but it showcases all the various things the ship can do and why I really like her. So enjoy. So, what's going on in shooty boats? Well, we've got a lot to talk about. Clearly, I'm back from Russia after spending last week at the CC Summit in St. Petersburg. If you follow the channel, you know I've already got one of my video logs posted, and I'm still getting everything together to edit the rest. That's probably where most of my weekend will go. The trip was fantastic. I'm not going to get bogged down here talking about it because I want you guys to watch the videos. That's the whole point of doing them. So keep your eyes out. Watch those when they come out. If you have questions or stuff you want to talk about, things you want to ask, do it over there. No worries. There's a ton of news to cover, like I said, but let's hit one of the routine things first. This week's NA Forum contest is a simple one. You sink 2 ships in any battle. Doesn't matter, co-op, random scenarios, ranked sprint, whatever. Post a screen cap in the forum thread, and you have a chance to win a premium Rogue Wave container. I've reviewed those somewhere else on the channel. I'll put a link, a video card in here or something. Everyone with a valid entry also gets 5 of the new event camos that they're doing right now. They're post-apocalypse or something like this. So there's been a whole slew of dev blog posts in the last 10 days or so that we've got to cover. So we'll start with the easy stuff. First, and they announced this one, I think, just yesterday, they're finally going to fix F key spam, right? Like, they added these vocal commands into the game like 2 years ago, it feels, I think, and we're finally going to be able to mute the jerks who run around spamming these things all game. And if you really want, you'll also be able to turn off battle chat entirely. So that's just a great quality of life change that everyone has been asking for forever. Glad to see that coming. While we were traveling to Russia, or in Russia, one of the two, they announced an initial round of testing for what they're calling semi-armor piercing shells. Now, this seems to be loosely based on the Regia Marina's Granada Perforante, so my expectation is we'll start to see these available on Italian tech tree ships as they come to the game. Now, we on the NA side spent some time talking about this while we're in St. Petersburg, so keep an eye out in the video logs and you're going to see this subject come up again. But anyway, SAP is essentially like an HE shell that doesn't light a fire, right? It has a higher pen value, but a 0 fire chance. So you're more likely to get full pen, or at least some pen, rather than a shatter, but it will not light fires. Changes are coming. More changes are coming to the priority sector system. Now, they've announced this previously, of course, and the dev blog post is essentially providing more detail. Some of the CCs that were in St. Petersburg last week got to test this on one of the production servers, but unfortunately I was not able to do that. I was doing the live stream Q&A at the time, so that was going on in a different room while myself and Flemu and Chase and UOCat were on stream speaking with Sir Nelson and Sub Octavian. I know the build they were using to test had some stability issues as well, so I really don't know what came out of this test. But the short version is this, right? They're actively working on making A more interactive and interesting for surface ship players. This is a good thing. There's no bad connotation about this at all. We spent a significant chunk of the CV rework panel discussing their proposals to improve anti-aircraft, one of which has already gone live with 0.8.5, right? The idea that damage ticks always apply to the last plane in the squadron, and they keep ticking there until it's dead, and then in the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and so on. That has already, I'm sure, of course we don't have the data, but I'm sure there's already been a performance hit to carriers as a result of that. In fact, initially it looked like it was such a huge hit that they made some more tweaks kind of right away. That's where we got 8.5.1. But Anyways, the underlying fear, of course, with all of this is that you can't push the AA system too far in the other direction. Carriers still have to be fun to play, and they have to be able to contribute to their team. And if the AA is so strong they can't do that, well then you've gone too far, right? So this is a very fine line to walk, and they're trying to find the balance point between what feels good for surface players. Hey, I took some damage, but I shot down some planes, and the carrier being able to continue to influence the battle and do anything essentially. The big thing is that it's we talked about this in the rework panel. I'm going to highlight this. I've got a video coming specifically about the rework panel, but we talked about literally the feels of AA, right? Like before, AA was doing a lot of damage, but because the way the system was designed, it was spread out to all to hell and gone. And so it felt like to the surface ship players that the carriers were striking, essentially they were striking them for free. And in some cases, that was actually true. The carrier player would take minimal, if any, losses at all because of the way the damage got spread out. Now, even the most dedicated carrier player who has all the buffs in the world spends enough time attacking somebody, he will take losses, right? So that's the thing. Another dev blog, they followed up to something that Sub-Octavian actually announced last November at Anchors Away Anaheim, a round of cruiser changes and tweaks designed to differentiate heavy cruisers and light cruisers. At present, in the game, heavy cruisers are kind of screwed, right? They get all the disadvantages of being a cruiser, the citadel and the lack of armor and all the rest of this stuff, but without the ridiculous rate of fire that most light cruisers bring to the table. Wargaming is trying to address this with a series of armor scheme tweaks and plus a nerf to the inertia fuse for HE Shell's commander skill. I'm on board with this, right? I love playing cruisers. I love playing light cruisers, but IFHE has been off the chain pretty much from the day it was in the game. I'm surprised it's taken them this long to get around to doing something about it because it's kind of been busted for a long time. So I'm very excited to see this coming. Now, the numbers they're talking about might change, of course, as all work in progress things do, but I'm glad to see it tested, and then let's put it out there and see, because I feel like I love playing heavy cruisers. I love having that flexibility, but heavy cruisers right now just get boned. They are, at long last, going to start making some adjustments to Tier 8 matchmaking. I specifically asked about this during the Q&A session we did on stream, and these changes are super welcome. I'm really excited for this. There's so many good Tier 8 ships, premium or otherwise, that need a little bit of love by not meeting their late war cousins, essentially, 60% or more of the time. The short version is that behind the scenes, I should say, the game is going to keep track of how frequently you find yourself up-tiered in a Tier 8 ship, and it's going to actively work. Matchmaker will actively work to rejigger your personal matchmaking, basically, in such a way that you will only be up-tiered, I think, into Tier 10 or Tier 9 matches, I think 40% of the time. Maybe I'm exaggerating. It's something like this. But the bottom line is they're trying to rein in that number. I think they've finally realized that Tier 8 needs some help here, and it's coming. So yay! Then we get into the really interesting stuff. Baseline, like plain non-premium consumables, are going away, and everyone will now have premium consumables, and they're going to be free. What? This change sounds nutty. Why would they do this? For starters, the effectiveness gap between players who do and don't use these consumables is massive. And those of us who take them on every ship, at every tier we play, I think, really don't realize how few people utilize these things. Someone in one of the sessions mentioned that more than half of the games played in Tier 10 ships, max tier ships, still do not use premium consumables. That's insanity, but it's happening. It demonstrates a huge education gap that I guess we as CCs and players have apparently failed at addressing amongst the player base. And so Wargaming is simply going to move everyone onto a level playing field in this regard and save us all the voluminous amounts of credits that we spend on premium consumables right now. Which is a good thing, because we're going to need those credits to buy ships. Yep, it's time we spent a little bit of time talking about the elephant in the room. This recently announced, they call it the Naval Training Center, whatever they end up calling it, that's got everybody up in arms. In case you've missed it, the short version of the pros concept is this. Once you've completed a line of ships and unlocked the Tier 10, you then go in and click a couple of buttons, and you unlearn this, and you sell back all the ships, and then you can regrind and repurchase them again. As you go through that process, starting with each tier at Tier 5, you'll earn some amount of a new nation-specific currency, that can then be spent on what amounts to prestige levels for any ship of that nation that you want to, tech tree or premium. What do these prestige levels do? Well, that's where the debate is raging right now. The initially proposed buffs that they showed us at the CC Summit were massive. Click the link down below and read the devlog for yourself. I don't want to spend tons of time getting lost in the minutiae here. But when the embargo lifted on this on Wednesday, for the first time in 6 months, everybody quit talking about aircraft carriers. That's been a nice change of pace, but I think it's been a bit of a punch to the gut for wargaming, and they're kind of in reaction mode now. Earlier today, it was like 30 hours after they made the initial announcement of this feature, they issued a statement indicating that they hear all these concerns, this is still a work in progress, but they're committed to some form of performance buffs for this system, which of course is what everybody is up in arms about to begin with. To me, one of the most telling things about this entire debate is that the people who have potentially the most to gain from it are some of its loudest detractors, right? The reaction at the CC Summit when they announced this was largely one of incredulity. You could look around the room and everyone's looking around, like looking at the guy to the left and right and like, did I just hear what I thought I just heard? I've never spent a ton of time playing a game with Paragon or Prestige levels or whatever you call these things before, but I have spent a lot of time playing World of Warcraft. Probably more than was healthy, to be perfectly honest. The end game there was all about a grind, right? You grind for reputation or tokens or new gear or whatever. That's how they keep you playing. That's how MMOs work. And in free-to-play MMOs, probably even more so. My initial reaction to this was kind of that this was essentially Wargaming's version of the same kind of thing. What's been interesting to me is how many people blatantly reject the entire concept at all. Not of the grind, but of the power that's attached to it. Which to me, again, as a veteran of MMORPGs, feels weird, because grinding for better gear always means more power. You invest the time, your character gets better. You invest the time, your character gets better. That's the way it works. I mean, yeah, some of these buffs are pretty flat out ridiculous on the face of it. You're going to give a battleship 15% more health and then a heal that's 40% better? Jesus Cristo, what's his effective health pool going to end up being? Little White Mouse knocked together something super quick on Conquer right after this was announced that showed under this system, that ship would have something like 400,000 effective hit points. That's lunacy. That's insane. And yet, I'm still somewhat, confused by the no buffs at all crowd, because, we already have flags that provide combat buffs. Nobody seems to care about that. The legendary modules were kind of a side grade, but nearly all of them had some kind of trade-offs or detractions in some fashion, but there were a couple that were straight-up buffs that you had to grind for. Nobody seemed to mind that. Admittedly, they only applied to a handful of ships, not potentially any ship in the game. Maybe that's the concern, I don't know. I guess it has to be about the size of the buffs, right? If it was only 5% health instead of 15%, is that reasonable? I don't know, right? We're never going to get a consensus, right? Everyone's going to have a different opinion. But from my chair, if we're talking about buffs that are approximately similar to those that are already found in the combat flag system, this can't be a deal breaker, right? Those kinds of things are already in the game. One of the things that was pointed out in the panel, and I'm going to point this out when I make my video on this particular session. The gentleman who was presenting it, and I apologize, I've forgotten his name, but the gentleman who was presenting this concept to us basically said, if you take a stock tier 9 ship, you just pick tier 9 randomly, could be any tier, and with, let's say a 3 or a 7 or a 10 point captain, and you put that into a game with the same tier 9 ship, but with combat flags and a 19 point captain and premium consumables and all the module upgrades and on and on and on and on. He said the combat difference between those two things, the same ship, is huge, is massive. We already have this kind of disparity in the game. It seems like what they're trying to do is just kind of move everybody to a new higher baseline and then give the experienced players something to strive for to make themselves more effective. That's what it seems like to me. But there's been a huge backlash, and I don't know where it's going to land yet. So we'll see. We've obviously got a ways to go before this settles out, so buckle up and enjoy the drama. Anyways, guys, I'd love to have, I've seen everyone's commenting on about this, but tell me if I'm way off base here, because there's parts of this that I'm still trying to learn. I'm trying to gather as many viewpoints as I can. Everybody's got a different objection, and I'm just trying to understand what everybody's concerns are. So feel free to comment below and help me out. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the Fletcher game. I've got more vlogs coming, of course, and some more fun stuff from the Twitch stream, as always. Stay tuned, and channels, we're back. We're back stateside, so the video production will resume. Take care, guys. Be safe out there, and I'll catch you later.